All right, everybody, it has been a couple of weeks. Let's just start talking about 2020 NFL. I'm not one of those guys that's going to pretend the XFL matters. Yes, I think it's cool, but look, I don't watch the Canadian Football League. I'm not really interested in people who aren't good enough to be in the NFL playing at this time of year. Now, when the NFL and the XFL eventually merge and they create some kind of feeder system for the NFL, I'll be much more interested in it. But for now, you know what? Let's just talk about the 2020 season. I'm going to start off basically our 2020 coverage by talking about Hard Knocks. I love Hard Knocks. We cover it on our podcasts, and I want to look through numbering from 5 to 1, the least likely to most likely teams to be on Hard Knocks. Now, before we get started, ground rules for Hard Knocks. If you're not familiar, there is a selection criteria. So basically, most NFL teams, they don't want to be on Hard Knocks. They don't want the distraction. If you've met any of this criteria, you aren't forced by the NFL. You don't have to do the show if called upon. One, if you hired a new coach in the offseason, that eliminates like 5 teams. If you've made the playoffs in the last 2 years, which eliminates, another chunk of teams. And then also if you've done the show already sometime in the previous 10 years, you do not have to do Hard Knocks. That leaves us with 5 teams, okay? Now, that's not to say another team can't opt in, but that's unlikely. So we're left with 5 teams, and I'm going to count down most likely to least likely, in my opinion, to be on Hard Knocks. Number 5 on this list is the Detroit Lions. Now, this is not a very interesting team to me. I was surprised that they held on to Matt Patricia last year, but with Stafford, and Stafford was playing very well under the new offensive system by their offensive coordinator, Darren something Bevell, the previous offensive coordinator of the Seattle Seahawks. Look, Stafford is playing great. The offense is doing well. This defense is concerning. I don't think there are a lot of stars, and when I mean stars, I'm not talking about NFL stars. I'm talking about translatable on TV stars. Like Matt Stafford, I don't think that's going to draw a lot of ratings. Kenny Golladay, I love the guy. I don't think that's going to draw a lot of ratings. There are a lot of good players and a lot of good pieces on Detroit. I just don't think that they're going to be the team picked by Hard Knocks in the NFL. Number 4 on my list. Now, this is my personal favorite. I just don't think it's likely. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I've already gone in. I'm starting working on my fantasy football book, which is called the Fantasy Football Almanac and Draft Guide. I'm going to have that out. We'll have details on that later. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think, are going to be the bounce-back team of the season. They, along with the AFC East, I think these are the only 2 divisions where every single team in the division takes a step up next year. Pittsburgh, I think, is going to be, like I said, the bounce-back team of the year. Once Roethlisberger comes back and feeds life into those young wide receivers, having that passing attack is going to help, of course. The running attack, whether it's Snell kind of coming along in the next offseason, probably not. Connor coming back, can he stay healthy for a full season? We'll see. They have a lot of good pieces. I think they're stars. The only thing I think drawing back, and I think, believe me, I think Hard Knocks would take that too. Pittsburgh is a fan base. Maybe Pittsburgh isn't the biggest city, but the Pittsburgh Steelers fans are all over the country. You get every single market, TV market. I think it's a slam dunk. The only thing is I think the Roonies will call Roger Goodell and the powers that be and say, hey, we don't want to do it. We're trying to make a run. Let's talk after Roethlisberger retired. So I think that's why I have Pittsburgh at 4. Again, they're my favorite team to be on here. I think it would be very interesting to watch Roethlisberger coming back from injury. I think this is a very talented young team outside of Roethlisberger. But again, I just don't see it happening. Number 3 on my list is the Jacksonville Jaguars. They have a quarterback who's interesting, but I think this Gardner Minshew, Uncle Rico, which I've never been a fan of that Uncle Rico. I think he looks more like Burt Reynolds in the 1970s. He looks like he should be running out in a bathrobe with chest hair. Not, in jersey and pads. It's kind of funny. But, the Gardner Minshew thing, I think it'll be cute for an episode, but I don't think it's going to carry like a 5 to 6 episode season for them. Jacksonville is typically a small market. Being from Orlando, I'm well versed in the Jaguars. I've been following them for a number of years. Look, Gardner Minshew, I like him. I like Fournette. I like, this defense has a lot of talent on it. But the people that are good for TV are kind of out of the system. Doug Marrone's not that great. He has the personality of a paper bag. I don't love him. Outside of Jacksonville and Jaguars fans, I don't think that the USA would be enthralled by this pick. So although I think they would be doing it, and I like the owner's kind of progressive. They do the London games. I don't think that they would fight it, but I don't think that they're going to be picked. So we're down to 2 teams. Number 2, and I was kind of hemming and hawing whether or not to put this team at 2 or at 1. The Denver Broncos. Now, again, talk about head coaches with the personality of like a piece of cardboard or something. Coach Fangio, every time I look at him on the sideline, it's just like, oh my gosh, I want to fall asleep. But this is a defense that's on the rise. They have stars. Von Miller, I don't know. We'll see how the rest of the offseason shakes out, if he's going to be there or not. You got Bradley Chubb, who was hurt last year. I think he's a star in the making. They wanted him to play the part of Khalil Mack in this defense when they came over. On the offensive side, you got Cortland Sutton ascending. You have Royce Freeman and Philip Lindsay, a pair of running backs, and I think Lindsay could be a breakout running back depending on the system that he plays in. Not to say he's not already done well, but I'm thinking he could do even better. And then you have Drew Lock, the rookie quarter. I guess he'll be the second year at this point. Can he bring the Denver Broncos back to glory? Can he end the basically bad record of quarterbacks for John Elway, outside of, by the way, Peyton Manning, who we lured over from Indianapolis way back in the day. But yeah, I think this would be an interesting one. You got Denver, you got a big fan base. Is it as big as Pittsburgh's? No, but I think the organization would be more amenable at this point to doing the show. And I don't think, while I think they're going to be much improved next year, and I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. And remember, they kind of surprised me with their the record they finished with, which was 7-9. I don't think they'll make the playoffs next year, so I think the organization would be more okay with it. Outside of, like I said, the Roonies would be like, no, we're trying to make a run this year. So I don't think Elway's going to have that power over the NFL this year. But I really do think the number one pick for Hard Knocks this season, I think it's going to be the Arizona Cardinals. Phoenix, that's a nice television market. It's a relatively big market and big city. The fan base, is it as rabid as some of these other fan bases? No, I don't think so. But you have Kyler Murray, the reigning NFL Rookie of the Year. You have Coach Kingsbury, kind of an offensive guy. They're turning the roster over. This is their second year. The GM, is he going to be on his way out? Isn't he? There's going to be, I think the personalities at head coach and GM are going to be big enough. Remember, we see a lot of those, the coaches and the GM, the meeting room stuff. I think those will carry some ratings. I think Murray and his star power carry some ratings. If they can get Fitzgerald to come back another year, again, we'll see what happens. That'll carry some ratings. And don't forget, people are, if you're not in the stats like I, kind of do a lot, Fitzgerald isn't that far away from catching Jerry Rice in terms of career receptions. Is he going to do it? He probably has to play 2 seasons, maybe 3 to do it, I believe. I think he's about 180 behind. He could do it if he wants to do it. Does he want to? I don't know that he's motivated by those types of things, similar to how I guess Barry Sanders wasn't really motivated to be the all-time rushing leader when he retired. But yeah, a lot of storylines, a lot of interest there, a lot of young players coming in, kind of fresh system, fresh outlook. I think the Arizona Cardinals are going to be the team on Hard Knocks this year. Again, my pick would be Pittsburgh. In fact, why don't I just do a preference order? I would say number 1 is Pittsburgh. Number 2, because of that interest level, I say Arizona. Number 3, maybe Denver. Number 4, just because I want to see more Gardner Minshew, I'll take Jacksonville. And number 5, Detroit, just because I'm not that, nothing against Detroit and the city of Detroit or the team or anything like that. I'm just not that enthralled by Matt Patricia. He doesn't do it for me. He's not going to do it for me on TV. I mean, I'm going to watch regardless because I'm a big fan of the show, but that's just how I see it. So there you go. There's my top 5, and I think the 5 really only likely teams to be in Hard Knocks. I don't think any teams outside of this list is going to volunteer for it. So we'll see how it shakes out. Let me know who your favorites are. Let me know who you'd like to see out of these 5, and then if you disagree with my ranking and most likely to least likely, please let me know there too. Comment. As always, like the network, subscribe to the network, and check us out because our 2020 NFL coverage, it's underway. Thanks everyone.